Hey everybody, it's Greg Reinhardt from GRB Academy. Doing episode 8, still with a squeaky chair. Today talking about how do you pick a junior college. Episode 7, we talked about why you should consider a junior college. And it is something that I think is a good thing for many and most people to consider. Next question, how do we pick one? There's so many of them. I'm not even going to touch California junior colleges because they're, I don't even understand it yet, to be honest, fully. But much like making a Division I decision, which I think was episode 2, pretty good episode, picking the right junior college, there's some of the same things that go into it, but knowing that it's a 2-year commitment and that coach is going to have to re-recruit you to your next stop along the way. In some of the recruiting practices that maybe happen at certain places and not at others. I think it's a good video to think about is, all right, I'm going to go to a junior college. I know it's a great fit for me, either academically, athletically, or I didn't get recruited how I want to, and I want to play Division I baseball one day, or I want to go somewhere where I can be on the field right away. You make that choice. Couple things to really ask yourself, ask the coach questions and things to think about. One, when you're picking a junior college, do your homework and find out if the place you are going has a coach who has a track record of sending guys to good 4 years afterwards, or to the draft, or both. But if you are picking a junior college and that coach has no experience getting his players out, either he doesn't have relationships, maybe isn't connected enough, just hasn't figured out the recruiting stuff, that's not going to be your fit, personally, in my mind. Like, if they can't help you move on, you got to move on afterwards. Like I said in episode 7, if you are someone who doesn't mind going through the process twice of recruiting, or going to 2 different schools and a junior college is your route, you obviously have to go through that recruiting process again. So make sure that coach has a good reputation for moving guys on with a past history. Number 2, make sure he has a record of development, and check his personal relationships. Like, you're going to be there for 2 years, much like picking a travel program, where you need to pick a travel program that has, number 1, right? If you pick a travel program, the number 1s and 2 should almost match travel program picking decisions. 1, does your travel program put people to the next level? Number 2, does your travel program have a vested interest in a personal relationship with you? Do they have a history of development over their years? Those same 2 things happen for junior colleges because you're basically extending your Division I recruiting by 2 additional years. So does that junior college form personal relationships with its players? And does it have a record of development? And probably most times those will match to some extent, sending guys to 4 years. Maybe not always. Some places are good, are just beneficial that they just get guys that are really, really good because they can move people on after that. Some places sit down and develop their people. You need to know what category you fall into. A good thing that was in the Division I piece on making your commitment is find and this is good for junior college, because anyone who's had success at junior college, much like Division I, is going to say positive things. It was a springboard for them. Find a player in their history, go through the past years, track that player down, track their parents down. Seems stalkerish, but it's not. Who wasn't very good, who wasn't very successful, who didn't go to Division I, and ask them this question. Did that coach still talk to you and still put in the time to develop you, even though you weren't one of their main people? And if the answer is yes, you are getting a quality person to put your time into, and could be a good fit for you. Other questions to ask for junior college recruiting. 1, do you have a roster limit? Very few have roster limits. If they do, you're going to be safe there in terms of most likely of not getting asked to leave. Most do not have roster limits, which means, like, who knows how many might show up? 40, 60 in the fall? A lot of JV programs. You need to figure out JV programs and how many people show up there off the roster limits. A telltale sign of some of this is asking, what is your fall roster size? And what is your spring roster size? There are junior colleges that will have 80 guys on the field in the fall, and they will have 30 on the field in the spring, which means 50 guys aren't playing baseball. It's a little bit sticky, but it's a question that needs to be asked. Another question, do you bring in guys that semester? And if so, why? There are horror stories of junior colleges that will bring in 25 guys at the semester because they either don't like their players or for whatever reason. When you ask them why, if it's like, are all these guys ineligible? If that's the case, what's going on, and why is the staff not making sure that players are eligible? That seems to me like there's a lack of discipline at that junior college. For sure. Check how many freshmen come back. If you don't come back from a junior college after year one, why not? If it's a roster limit issue and they didn't get playing time, that defeats the purpose of going to a junior college. An interesting question, do they offer housing? There are a lot of places that do not have housing at junior colleges. Knowing that someone may not have a roster size and may not have housing likely means you sign a 1-year lease to live in an apartment or rent a house with a bunch of guys that you maybe don't know. If that's the case and they don't have a roster limit and they bring in a bunch of guys that semester, you need to be prepared to pay rent for that full year if you leave. And I know that's in a lot of places, but most schools offer housing or dorms or something like that, but there's a lot of junior colleges that don't have a housing option. You're in an apartment right away, and that's a big step for an 18-year-old. Not saying it can't be done, just saying it's something to think about. And you can ask most of those questions right to the coach. You can ask them, hey, why do you guys bring in so many people at semester? What's your fall roster? If they feel uncomfortable answering that, or uncomfortable or seem frustrated that you've asked why do you bring in 20 guys at semester? If they can't or won't answer, that's not your pick to go to a junior college because they're not telling you the truth. So, picking the right JUCO, quick rundown. Reputation moving guys on to Division I or to a 4-year after successfully. Do they have good personal relationships with their players and a history of development? Find past players. Do your research on them. Ask them about the roster limits. Ask them about housing, fall roster limits, spring roster limits. Do they have a JV program? How many people come back? I just don't want people to land at a junior college and that semester you got 12 guys that show up from Puerto Rico. Sounds crazy, but it happens. So, or anywhere. Just using, like, there's a lot of times schools will roll in a bunch of Latins that semester. They'll be eligible for that semester and move them on. So these are things that really happen in the real world of college athletics. You need to make sure that you cover your own butt on some of these things. So make sure you ask questions. That's episode 8, a little bit shorter. I hope you all are enjoying this. And if you haven't yet, please click subscribe. We're working on growing this page. And if in 5 years we're going to have thousands upon thousands of videos of players and videos about these things and drill series. So long term, it will be a really great YouTube page. So thank you again. See you soon.